Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. We have with us another special guest. Now this guest you might actually know because he has exploded on social media, specifically LinkedIn, and he talks about getting into the medical device sales industry. You know, what to expect, what to look for, what to prepare for when you're someone that wants to work in that space, and if you're someone that's already in that space, what to consider when you're looking to work for a company like Medtronic. And we're talking about Jay Pendleton. He's the Director of Strategy and Talent for Medtronic. And this is a really explosive interview because we don't just talk about what it means to be in the space and what to look for. We also talk about management and leadership and even his role and his trajectory going from rep to manager to Director of Strategy and Talent. This is going to be a 2-part episode. Today you're listening to part 1. So make sure you tune in next week to catch part 2. So as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really hope you enjoy this interview.
All right. Hey, Jay, how are we doing today?
Hey, Samuel, how are you?
I'm fantastic. So today we have with us Jay Pendleton. Some of you might have seen his face on LinkedIn, spreading all kinds of knowledge about the industry and what to do and how to make it. But I'm not even going to take time to introduce him. I'm going to let him introduce himself. So, Jay, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. My name is Jamil Pendleton. I go by Jay, and I am in the medical device space. I've been here, for most of my professional career. I started out with IBM for 4 years, kind of learned how to sell, how to talk to customers, how to run a territory, how to work with others, work with teams, different cross-functional teams. All those things were super, super helpful then, and I still draw from them today. I took a gap year where I literally quit my job at IBM, sold my car, and
wait, Jay, we have to get into the gap year. You can't glaze over the gap year. But before we even jump into that, what's your role today? What's your role today?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I am the Director of Strategy and Talent for Medtronic's Cranial and Spinal Technologies, CST. And essentially, I'm charged to grow market share through helping different teams internally and externally with surgeons and our sales force, as well as recruiting new talent to fuel that growth within the sales force.
Excellent. So this is it's not a recruiter role. It's completely separate than a recruiter role.
The recruiting piece is something that my boss and I talked about, and it's a growth strategy for the company and something that I actually enjoy. And I was rush chairman for my fraternity, so maybe it's something I've been working on for a long time. But I absolutely was doing this the last few years in my previous role, managing the Western United States for our strategic spinal technology team, and it's something that I'm continuing to do today on a national scale.
All right. So before we get into the progression of your career, talk to us about why did you even go the healthcare route? Is this something you wanted in college? Is this something you've always been about since you were a youth? Give us a little bit of history.
Not at all, actually, Samuel. I didn't even know this world existed. So I took my gap year, which we can talk about later, came back from traveling abroad for better part of 2006. And in the fall, I met a girl. That girl is now my wife.
Wow.
And we were, in the fall of 2006, we started dating. And at that point, my plan before I met her was to go back out to Argentina. In fact, I was invited to a wedding in December, Patagonia region, and didn't make that wedding because I met a girl who, as Jack Nicholson said, made me want to be a better man. So I quickly realized I needed to get my life back together and get my career back on track after that gap or that pause.
Yeah.
And so I was spinning my wheels looking into, I knew I was going to do something related to sales, but I wasn't really sure what industry. Thought about going back into IT, potentially real estate. I have a lot of friends in commercial real estate specifically. And then my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, said, why don't you talk to my cousin? You guys are very similar personalities, and he loves what he does, and he works with surgeons. Surgeons? Like what? Like pharmaceutical sales? And she's like, no, he's in scrubs in the operating rooms. At that point I had ACL surgery, like a decade before. And so I was familiar with surgery and orthopedics somewhat, or sports medicine at the time, but I didn't really know this world existed, that there were reps in the room. And I immediately reached out to her cousin, who was working for a big player in the industry in the trauma space.
Sure.
And he told me to get into spine. That was he was like, look, this is a great world and I love it, but I would recommend you get into spine. This was 2007.
So he gave you immediate direction. No, nothing. Just get into spine.
Get into spine. And his comments were like, look, there's still a lot of technological advancements in spine. From a pricing perspective, it hadn't been, capped yet. And there was runway. And, runway is a big thing for me. Like, I need to see that upward mobility in whatever, path that I'm pursuing, makes it worth pursuing.
Sure.
And so I started just diving into the research of that, Samuel, and just buried myself into anything that I could find online. At the time, Medzilla, Med Reps, there were all sorts of forums, and I was in the rabbit hole, so to speak, of people talking about these jobs and interviewing for these jobs. And this was way before any of the tools this is way before LinkedIn. This was way before any of the tools that are specific to networking.
Right.
But there was all sorts of information in terms of research. So a publicly traded company has an annual report. They talk about where they're focused and what they did the past year. I read every single one of the companies that I was talking to, right? The Synthes, right? Before the Depew, before the merger, the Medtronics of the world, the Strykers of the world, Biomet, right? All of these companies at the time I was trying to just get in with. So that was kind of my introduction into this space. It was something previously I didn't even know existed.
Wow. Okay. So then let's walk it back again then. So in college, what did you want to do?
Yeah, I was a business major. Started out as an MIS major. So very kind of I love technology and maybe I'm starting to kind of experiment a little bit with some of these new tools that we have, the cloud and the social media and the reach of that. But I was an MIS major until I realized that truly I'm a people person. And so how do I connect those dots? Well, so let's go into sales, but IT sales. And so that was kind of what I was interested in the most. But I was a business major, but a psychology minor. And I mentioned this on another podcast that I use my psychology minor probably more than my business major today and every day, because sales is the art of understanding people, the customer, the influencers, the gatekeepers, the colleagues, the teams. How do you influence behavior when you have no authority? Like those are difficult things to do. And I felt, now looking back, I felt that, I'm drawing on some things that, I probably learned in college. I couldn't cite them today, but I feel like that was on purpose and absolutely not a haphazard thing to get a psychology minor and tack on. Business degree.
You're 100% correct. I mean, like you said, sales is a psychology of its own, and it's understanding what people actually need, what they want, and what they gravitate to. And you got that early on in your development, so you were able to piecemeal it into everything else you learned. So it makes perfect sense. So what inspired you to take this gap year then? So you left IBM and you said, you know what, I'm going to just travel abroad. What kicked that off?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think I was 25 at the time. I had no significant girlfriend or a career that I couldn't leave, or at least put on hold, and no real attachments. And so it was kind of the The thought process was I had born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and I had never left. I went to college at SMU in Dallas, was a Hunt Leadership scholar for SMU, and loved it, but never really left my bubble, so to speak, of Dallas. And in 2004, when I was working at IBM, I went on an amazing, eye-opening, transformational trip to Tokyo and Beijing with a colleague that I used to work with at IBM. He had left to he was Chinese, born in Richardson, Texas, but father and mother were Chinese, and he had a company that he was launching, and we were going over there for a business meeting, and he needed some help, and we were meeting with Yao Ming and his agent, and he was launching whey protein and supplements.
You were meeting with Yao Ming?
Yeah, I never got to see Yao, but we met with his agent, and it was the wildest thing. I had no clue what anyone was saying. They were smoking at the table across, this big table. Yeah. This is 2004, so they were starting to set up for the Beijing Olympics in 2008.
Sure.
And China at the time was experiencing just a huge influx of disposable income for their population, and so wellness and gym memberships and whey protein and all this stuff was just exploding. And so my buddy capitalized on that. And I was his model because I lift a lot of weights, and I was the guy taking his product, which I had taken maybe once or twice before. But it was a great trip, and we, opened my eyes. So to your question, it completely opened my eyes that there is an entire world, Samuel, outside of my scope. And the sad reality is only 30% of Americans ever leave America or even have a passport.
Yeah.
And even now with COVID and the restrictions of travel, my fear is that's not going to improve.
Right.
But for me, I wanted to do something different. And I saw the Chinese, the Japanese, those cultures, how drastically different they were. And it was astonishing, and I caught the bug. So that was 2004. Fast forward 2 years, basically the better part of 2005 was spent planning for this trip while working, but planning on my own time, on weekends and nights with my best friends. There was initially going to be 3 of us. And then ultimately it was just 2 of us. And then the third guy came out and met us in Spain and Portugal and did part of the trip with us in Thailand and Holland. But it was that trip to China and Japan to just open my eyes. You know what? Before I get a job or a girl that I just can't leave, I need to go see the world so that I can understand not only the world, but what I gained was perspective on Jay and who I was. And I'll never forget sitting on the beach in Barcelona, one of the most beautiful countries, beautiful places in the world, cities, countries. We can edit that out. Yeah. So I was sitting on the beach, the crowded beach in Barcelona, and I didn't know a soul. And I was lonely, and I was homesick. And this was the tail end of the trip, and I'm journaling about it. And I just remember how healthy that is to realize the attachment of home and of family and of things that are familiar. And while it's great to see other cultures and experience different things, I longed to see my mom and dad and my sister and her newborn baby, so that I hadn't met yet, right? So I experienced a long trip, and it was wonderful to see from Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, Southeast Asia, Europe, Hong Kong, Dubai, Vietnam. Incredible trip. But home is home, especially Texas. We're proud of our state, and I missed home.
I know too many Texans.
Yeah. So that was kind of that. And then again, to catch us up with it, I met shortly after the trip, I met my now wife, and she helped just give me the inspiration, motivation, and assistance of finding my new career.
That's beautiful. That's a story. I love it. I always want to know when it comes to those world trips, because you're right. Traveling it's essential. You need it. I before COVID, I try to leave the country at least twice a year. And so when I hear people that had the opportunity to just make it life for a little while, I'm like, oh man, I know Jay got all kinds of development when he did that.
It was incredible.
You said what?
It was incredible. And Samuel, I still draw from the trip today.
Yeah.
And when I started trying to get back into the workforce, I didn't shy away from this gap in my resume.
Right.
It was something that I put as front and center, as this was what I did during 2006. You know, why is there a gap in your resume? Well, that was intentional. And let me tell you why. And what do you think most interviews started to trail down? It started to, I just wanted to talk about the trip.
Right. They're like, wait a minute, you did what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And there was also an entrepreneurial moment of the trip, which I don't know how much time we have, but we were in Thailand and we saw, and we're both soccer players. My best friend Billy and I are both avid soccer players from which we could walk. And so we've always kind of known there's a great world out there that loves the game of soccer outside of the U.S. when it's like a stepchild of sports. And so we saw these jerseys in the Chatuchak market in Thailand, and they were incredible. I don't know if they were just the best counterfeits I've seen or really the real true jerseys. They had all jerseys. They had holograms. They had it all. And we decided, we actually, a few weeks later, we were telling this story in Laos while tubing. And there was a gentleman who said, well, let me get this right, you guys. You're in Southeast Asia now. You go into the World Cup next. Going to give you a bit of advice. Buy as much as you can over here for cheap and go there and you go sell it. You make mad profit.
Right.
And for two backpackers on a shoestring budget who are trying to decide if it's $1 for a hot room in Thailand or $3 for the air conditioning, making money was just a motivator.
Sure.
And so we did just that. We bought 150 jerseys in Thailand. We shipped them to Stuttgart. We had a good friend who had a friend in the army. So we had a place to stay, kind of a home base. And for the month of June, when we were there for the World Cup in Germany, we didn't have to go to an ATM once, because if you're hungry, or I didn't say didn't have to go to the ATM, we made it a commitment that we were not going to the ATM. If we were hungry, we wanted to drink a German beer or have some food or go do something, go sell some jerseys. We've already made the upfront investment.
Wow.
And so it enabled us to extend our trip another 2 months. We both made, we bought them for $7, factoring and shipping $11. We sold them on average for 60 to between 60 and 80 euro. At the time, with the conversion rate, we're making about 82% profit margin on each jersey. And so that was just a fun little entrepreneurial story. And I capture it in a PDF, which was part of my brag book, which I'm sure you're familiar with that. A lot of people in medical don't know it, but that's a big pharma thing. Yep. I put that in my brag book and front and center. So resume, references, world travel project, entrepreneurialism, because again, and I'm speaking out of turn here, but talking to some of your audience, it's all about differentiating yourself. And what can you do? What makes you special? What makes you unique? And it's all based on your experiences and things that you've done between, your past and this present moment when you're in front of a hiring manager. So that's it.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Wow. What a story. Okay. All right. So that gave you a whole new spin on life. You came back. You met the woman of your dreams. She connected you to opportunities. You took advantage of them. All right, now walk us through the career path.
Career path has been an interesting one. I feel very fortunate for Rummer Medical. James Sherman hired me. Brad Rummer was a titan of the industry back in the day, and a huge business exclusive distributor for Medtronic. So they gave me my shot, and I had a year working under Scott Noonkester, who is an incredible rep. He was a former Army scrub tech, nurse. Knew everybody in the hospital. When you walk in, there's hugs. This is before vendor credentialing. So you sign in on a spiral notebook and everybody's happy to see you. Now it's the opposite. Get on your red hat. Where's your badge? Don't go in this room, all this stuff. So it's definitely changed for the better. I mean, I think that there needs to be credentialing. People need to know who's in their hospital, and there's a good reason for that. But I got to learn under Scott how to run a room, how to be of value, how to be a servant leader, how to help out in every way. And so did that for a year, and I was ready. I felt ready to have my own territory. And so then I moved to Austin. I was excited about that. My wife and I were engaged at the time, and we moved to Austin to work again for Rummer. And great team, great leadership, but just no opportunity for me. to really have my own deal and grow. So that, again, that runway, that upward mobility just wasn't there.
Right.
And I started to get a little frustrated and talking to management about it. And we talked about maybe moving back, and they had another opening in North Texas. And then around that same time, but my wife had already got a job in Austin. And so we were kind of torn. And around that same time, NuVasive recruited me to join their team. And it was a difficult decision, but took a risk and it paid off.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that was 2010. So I spent 7 years at NuVasive as a rep in Austin and Austin area Metroplex, a lot of Round Rock, a lot of Georgetown.
Right.
And did that and loved it. But again, there's a shelf life to that. And I was missing some things, and thought that there might be more that I can contribute to the industry, to the surgeons and their patients on a grander scale.
Explain that a little bit. You're saying there's shelf life to that. Shelf life to what specifically?
Yeah. So, I'm an analogy king, and I can talk. I'm going to talk in movie quotes and analogies. If you know me, I don't watch TV, but I love movies, and I'm going to give you an analogy. So I was waiting by the loading dock of the hospital on this little side street of our community hospital downtown Austin, waiting for Friday afternoon add-on cervical corpectomy, I believe, to start. Earlier in the day, when the case posted, I told my wife, "Hey, I got this case that added on." And our thing with our kids is, we love to go out for Tex-Mex, fajitas and Ritas, right? The kids don't have Ritas; they have the fajitas and the chips and queso. But
got it.
That's our thing. And I said, "Yeah, no problem. I'll be there 5:30. This was like a noon case, no problem." I'm sitting there at 3:30. Patient is still getting an A-line. This isn't happening. And I'm sitting there in my truck, and I called my wife, and I had to basically cancel plans. And I mean, every rep that watches this has done something similar, if not worse. I mean, I've come back from vacations early, flown home separately, left Easter service early, where I'm showing up to the hospital in my dress shoes and then changing the scrubs and Uber home. I mean, we do these things because you just have to. You're there because they want you in the room. And so when you get to that commitment level where you're the guy that the surgeon wants, then it's tough to detach yourself from it. And I felt like I was torn because I want to be there as part of that team, but I also thought there was something more out there. So back to that moment, I'm sitting in my truck. I know I'm missing my Friday night with my family. And I see this older gentleman, probably late 50s, pulling up in his car and, getting his hand truck out and getting trays out of the trunk. And, I just kind of was like, okay, I don't want to be that guy.
Realization.
This time I'm 35 years old and I'm just like 36 and I don't know. I just, what else is out there? So that's why I started thinking about it. And then, some cultural changes and leadership changes at NuVasive kind of sped up that process, and came back home, and I'm super, super thrilled about being back at Medtronic, and May will be my 4th year back.
Got it. So it sounds like almost every opportunity you found, the opportunity kind of found you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I put my faith and trust in the Lord, and I pray about it and keep grinding every single day, and good things happen, and that's ultimately what I do. And it's, nothing happens by chance. And I know that when one door is shut, maybe there's a window that's opened, or maybe another door that's even bigger is going to be open. You just have to give it time and have faith and trust the process. So what I do and what I try to do is just focus on improving myself every single day. And as it relates to career and career path, these things keep happening. And so I'm doing something right. You mentioned the videos on LinkedIn. That is a new thing for me. And others are witnessing me exploring and in discovery mode.
Yeah.
But I'm getting daily affirmations. I'm getting people reaching out to me. Literally, I had 3 people today, maybe 4, who specifically said, "Hey, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it." One guy hit his quota for 7 straight years. He missed quota once, 1 quarter, and he's not going anywhere. That rep is never leaving. Maybe he reached out to me. He was the reason I did that video today. He reached out to me to learn about Medtronic.
Wow.
quietly, right? Wants to understand kind of what I'm talking about and a little bit more details behind the new Medtronic and Jeff Martha and his leadership and his stated vision for the company. And I am happy to provide my opinion, at least where I see it going, because I'm excited about it as well. And I feel like to get to that stated vision of a new culture with competitive culture, we're going to need more people. We're going to need talented people. And so that was every time I think, is this too much? Am I sharing too much? Am I posting too frequently? Right? What's the right cadence? I don't know I honestly don't know, but I get that affirmation from people. Two Medtronic reps reached out today and they're like, keep going. And so here we are.
And that was Jay Pendleton. Great interview. Love talking to him. Make sure you tune in next week for part 2. We're going to go into more depth around what he's doing, different things in his role, and where he wants to take things as far as the voice he's really made himself on the LinkedIn platform. As always, we want to make sure you understand what we do here at Evolve Your Success, and we help people reach success. I mean, that is what we do. So if you're someone that wants to get into the industry, and this is any industry, not just medical device sales, right? Medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales, biotech sales, the dental space, molecular sales, genetic sales, then make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn under Samuel Adeyinka. You can find me, send me a text, and let's have a conversation. And we'll put you in contact with one of our representatives, and we'll get you situated so that you can be on your way to experience the success you want to experience. And if you're someone that's leading a sales team or you're a sales professional that really wants to improve their performance, then once again, make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Improve Sales Performance, and let's schedule some time to talk, or find me on LinkedIn under Samuel Adeyinka. As always, we thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. Again, make sure you tune in next week for part 2 for some more with Jay Pendleton. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.